The New York Jets are now on the board.
Okay, Jet fans, Darrelle Revis.
Being in New York has been one of the greatest blessings.
Mekhi Becton.
Let's go, I'm ready. Go, let's go.
The New York Jets select.
Welcome to our Jets Draft Countdown series, delivered by Duncan. I'm Eric Allen inside the BetMGM studio. In just 1 week, the Jets will participate in one of their most critical drafts in recent memory. With 10 selections, including 5 in the first 3 rounds, the Green and White have a golden opportunity to accelerate their building process. It's all but a certainty that the Jets will take a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick. But there won't be time for celebrating here at One Jets Drive once that signal caller is announced. For the Jets, that first pick will be just the start of a weekend of player acquisition. Coming up, we'll talk defense with Jets legends Anthony Becht and Eric Coleman. Ethan Greenberg and the Athletic's Dane Brugler will break down some of the top linebackers in this class. Brian Baldinger will look at some of the big uglies on the offensive interior. Plus, Olivia Landis will chat with NFL Network's Bucky Brooks. Before we get to Anthony and Eric, let's take a look at Joe Douglas's notable free agency acquisitions, headlined by Carl Lawson. Let's bring in the aforementioned Anthony Becht and Eric Coleman. Fellas, just 1 week until the 2021 NFL Draft. We just saw that graphic on free agency additions for the New York Jets. Eric, let's start with you. The headliner, of course, Carl Lawson. Why is he going to be a good fit as the Jets transition to a 4-3 look up front on the defensive side of the ball?
Well, I think Carl Lawson would be a great fit because, not only is he a pass rusher, he can get after the quarterback, he can apply pressure without having to blitz. He's also stout against the run. He's kind of transitioned later in his career, later in that time with Cincinnati, into a 3-down defensive end. He's going to be a tone setter. He brings a lot of violence to the defense and a guy that the younger guys can grow with. So Quinnen Williams up the middle, Carl Lawson coming off the edge with some other guys. I think it's going to be a great combination for this Jets defense.
Anthony E's reading my notes. What do you think about that combination with Quinnen Williams on the interior? He became one of the better defensive tackles in the National Football League last year. And you add Lawson, who this organization believes is an ascending talent at 26 years old. And Eric just mentioned it, became a 3-down player last year in Cincinnati.
I love it. He's in the prime of his career. Eric touched on it a bit about his pass rush skills. He was very aggressive in his pressures. And we all know that pressures, even though it didn't equal sacks, really does make quarterbacks feel uncomfortable. And that's what you have to do in this league. Another thing that really stands out about him is his quick twitch. He's just got great movement, upper body, lower body. He's able to win on one-on-one pass rush moves. And I'll be honest with you, when I look at it, everybody says, well, he got a lot of pressures, but he didn't get to the quarterback. Don't forget in Cincinnati, Carlos Dunlap was a guy that wanted to get traded and wanted out of Cincinnati. He leaves, and then Geno Atkins was a shell of himself. So you're basically talking about a one-man show going against the offensive opponents week in and week out. So him combined with Quinnen Williams, a hungry young player who's looking to get better and better and be the best at his position, I can't wait to see that on Sundays.
But I do think the Jets still might add to that group. It could happen early in the draft, especially at the edge position. Eric, let's go back a level. Let's go back a level and talk about the linebackers. Where do you think the level of need right now is for the Green and White?
Well, at linebacker, obviously you get better when you add C.J. Mosley into the fold. He got big money coming out of Baltimore. The Jets were expecting great things out of him. He missed from an injury, then opted out last year. Having him in the middle of that defense is going to be an instant upgrade. You have Jared Davis, who came over from the Detroit Lions, who is a very physical and talented linebacker. Blake Cashman, a guy who we all know has great athleticism, great speed, but can he stay on the field? This is a good group of linebackers. I think if you needed to add, it would be from the depth perspective. You need to add some depth. You also need some speed. Playing that 4-3, you need quick linebackers who can scrape, who can play sideline to sideline. So anyone who had that speed and athleticism is going to help upgrade this defense.
Yeah, speed. That's one thing that we continue to hear from Robert Saleh and the Jets defensive staff. And I wonder if that position, linebacker, they're specifically going to look to add to that group on day 3 of the draft, get some value there. Let's go back an additional level Anthony. What do you think about where the Jets are at cornerback, and have you been surprised that they haven't made a significant addition prior to the draft?
You know, you always try to find the best guy in free agency that you feel, number one, fits what you're trying to do and accomplish it from your scheme-wise, but also from a money standpoint. You know, does it make sense to overpay, underpay, whatever you're thinking from that position? It doesn't surprise me. They have a plan, right? I mean, you got a lot of draft capital to work with. There's a lot of corners coming out of this draft this year. I'm excited about a bunch of them, not just the first couple guys that are to be taken off the board, but the depth. And I think if the Jets do their homework like a lot of these teams can, especially the fact, we talk about this all the time with the pandemic, not being able to get to as many schools and do that digging and finding out those insides of each guy. You know, who are your connects? Who are your coaches you trust? Do they have guys on their roster that can, you know, be surprise players in the NFL, or maybe someone gets overseen? So again, this could be a huge opportunity for the Jets, I think, throughout this draft to find themselves some really productive players, in particular the cornerback position.
Yeah, Douglas has 10 draft picks, and if you think about it, the Jets have some interesting young players, long-limbed guys on the outside who like to get physical, including a draft pick from last year, Bryce Hall. You got Bless Austin, Javelin Guidry showed some things at the nickel position as well, so you have that as your base. With that being said, do you think, Eric, that you could see the Jets selecting 1-2 corners draft weekend?
Absolutely. You know, I can definitely see the Jets upgrading that defense at the corner position, adding some depth. Listen, I'm a defensive back. You can never have enough defensive backs on the roster. You know, not only can they help you out with the packages on defense, they excel on special teams. So, you know, I think getting that younger generation in, helping add to what you already have. They play a lot of zone defense. You know, Robert Saleh likes to play that cover 3. He likes to mix things in. So a young corner is going to be an easy transition. It's not as much thinking going on, not as much time sitting on an island. You can plug in a younger player and help them grow their career and go out there and help your defense.
All right, so you guys have no time to think right here because you're on the clock, you're on the island. Let's start with you, E. Who is the best defensive player in the 2021 draft class?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, there are a lot of great players out there in this draft. I like Micah Parsons from Penn State. You know, he's a guy who's been a blue chipper, a top recruit when he was coming out of high school. He had high expectations when he was at Penn State, and he's done nothing but deliver.
Freak athlete, no doubt about that. Anthony, who will be the first defensive player taken in the draft?
Well, you know, obviously from popular demand, Eric probably has the right guy in mind, but, you know, I'll take a flyer on this one. You know, Patrick Surtain's a pretty good corner, 6'2", 200 pounds, got length. He's got legacy. His dad was a Pro Bowl player as well, playing cornerback position. 38 starts, guys, at Alabama. I'm just saying this right now, going against some of the best receivers every year for 38 straight games, that to me is basically a plug-and-play kind of guy.
E, if the Jets go defense at number 23 overall, who would be the most ideal fit?
You know, when you think about Robert Saleh defense, you know, I look at San Francisco. They have Fred Warner, a very athletic, agile linebacker who can blitz. He can play the run well. He can cover tight ends. And I look at Jeremiah Owusu Karamora from Notre Dame. You know, he's a linebacker. He's about 6'1", 220 pounds. Kind of one of those guys who can play strong safety, can play linebacker for you. I think that would be a great fit.
If the Jets do go offense early, what do they have to hit on day 3 on the other side of the ball?
Well, Eric's going to like this because I'm going with 2 corners that I like. And not only do I like them, they're both in the Pac-12. The first guy is Keith Taylor out of Washington. This guy didn't play many games last year because of the pandemic, but he went to the Senior Bowl, had an outstanding week, had an interception in his Senior Bowl as well. 6'2". He's got some track in his background out of high school, guy that can really get in the receiver's face. I'm all about big corners. I really like him. And the other guy is Paulson Adebo from Stanford. Here's another guy, 6'1", 190, incredible production early on in his career. But I just think, for me, watching his film, big, strong guy, loves to get around the football, get his hands on guys. You can't go wrong with those kind of corners.
You know E's not going to be happy. It chose 2 players out of the Pac-12 and nobody from Washington State, Anthony. Thanks, fellas.
Maybe next year.
Thanks, fellas. We'll see you shortly. here is a quick look at Dane Brugler's top linebacking prospects in the 2021 NFL Draft. As we wonder how the puzzle pieces might fit together on draft weekend, we say hello to Ethan Greenberg.
Thanks, EA. Let's bring in Dane. Dane, we just took a look at your top 10 linebackers, and let's assume both Micah Parsons and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah off the board at 23 when the Jets are on the clock. What's the drop-off between those two guys and the next two, and Zaven Collins and Nick Bolton?
I'd say there's a little bit of a drop-off, and I think it just depends on what you're looking for. The first two guys, and Parsons and Owusu-Koramoah, I think are more scheme versatile with the different areas they could play at the next level, where Collins and Bolton, maybe you need a little bit more of a right fit for them. With Collins, and these two guys are very different, by the way. Collins is more of your oversized linebacker. He's a big boy, and he never really played linebacker before he got to Tulsa. I mean, he's a high school quarterback and just played a lot of different positions. And he goes to Tulsa. They've run like a 3-3-5 scheme, and they asked him to do a little bit of everything, and he did a really nice job. He helped out in coverage. He had 4 interceptions, 2 returned for touchdowns this past year. Just a large-framed linebacker who moves really smooth. Nick Bolton, I think, is more he's a better fit for a traditional 4-3, probably as an outside will. He's a little undersized, and that's the biggest worry with him. I think there's going to be some comparisons between him and Devin Bush, who went to the Steelers a few years ago, 10 overall. Bolton's a little undersized. You wish you were a little bit longer. You wish you were a little bit taller. But his range and his play style are outstanding. You love the play personality. As a run defender, he trusts what he sees. He has the vision to blow up runners at the line of scrimmage. Play speed, the instincts, the contact-driven mentality, that all translates to production at the next level. So I think he's a 3-down player if he continues to improve.
Dane, the Jets have 2 third-round picks. If they decide to go in the linebacker direction with one of them, who's a player that you think makes sense there?
Yeah, Pete Werner, and the key with him is all about versatility. Ohio State, they felt comfortable leaving him on the field really in any situation, all 3 downs. He's physical enough so he can match up downhill. He can use his hands, work off blocks, chase down the play. But you can also play him in space. He does a nice job with his outside leverage, zone dropping, holding up in coverage. He can just do a little bit of everything, and he offers the smarts, the toughness that NFL teams are looking for. So in the 3rd round, I think he'd present some pretty good value for a player that, probably never going to make a Pro Bowl in his career, but it's just going to be a quality, piece to your defense.
Dane, great stuff as always. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, Ethan.
Yeah, so I can't wait to be in the NFL. This is really a dream come true for me. I've been thinking about this since I have been like maybe 9-10 years old.
Once I enter the NFL, I want to start at a high level and keep increasing every year and being able to do other things that other tight ends aren't doing, which will make me special. So I feel like at the end of the day, with all the preparation and just through the years, I feel like I'll at the end be the best to ever do it.
I love learning positions. I'm going to learn to embrace whatever you guys get, put me.
I'm one of the best skilled guys in the draft. I'm able to do it all. I feel like I had that component to that team to the next tier,
I really don't care who it is in front of me. I'm going to approach everything the same way, and I got the mentality that I just won't be stopped.
Honestly, I just want to go out and show that I'm a competitor. I just want to compete with everybody out there, not just all the other running backs, but everybody in the draft. Even if something they already seen on film, I just want to show it to them in person.
Just being able to impact the team each and every down, I feel like this makes me different.
I think just personally, my versatility, along with my vision and patience to run, as well as having a pass catching ability. So just being able to be that complete guy.
I'm very open. I love to be coached. I'm going to work extremely hard. If I'm not good at it now, I'm going to be good at it later.
I feel like me being in the game, I just possess a lot of things that just God given.
I knew I still had some things to fix, but I knew once I fixed that no one was going to be able to stop me. So that when I came back, when we did have a season, and I was ready and I was going to prove that I was number 1.
As the Pro Day season has come to an end, one thing we can be sure of in the 2021 NFL Draft is there are a lot of explosive playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Bucky Brooks played wide receiver in the league and returned kicks, but now he's scoring as an NFL media analyst. Olivia Landis is standing by with Bucky right now.
Thanks, EA. Let's now toss it over to NFL Network's Bucky Brooks. Bucky, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
Bucky, GM Joe Douglas loaded up on the defensive line in free agency. And with the draft quickly approaching, I'd love to know your opinion on who you think should be available for the Jets on the defensive side of the ball after that number 2 pick.
You know, it's interesting because the Jets have done a really good job of loading up on the defense side of the ball. So it's about adding a few pieces. They still need another edge rusher. I don't think you can have enough edge rushers in this league. And so when I'm thinking of like the Jets being at 23 or so, there are a couple guys that will come to mind. I would think that Kwity Paye from Michigan might already be off the board, but Jalen Phillips could be available. Miami, a guy who is a very, very talented and explosive athlete off the edge, very technical with his hands, does a great job of consistently creating pressure and disruption off the edges. Another Miami guy, Gregory Rousseau, who's long, rangy, reminds me a little bit of former New York Giant Jason Pierre-Paul with his length and athleticism. Didn't play last year, but man, he has a lot of tools that are really intriguing. And then Azeez Ojulari from the University of Georgia. First step quickness first, guy who plays tremendous effort and a relentless spirit. He is someone who could be available at that pick. And if he's there, I think you certainly have to entertain adding him to Gang Green.
Bucky, you spoke about a few edge rushers and how that might be a need for the Jets as they approach the draft. But when you think about the draft overall, where do you see the most depth on the defensive side of the ball?
You know, the defense side of the ball, I would say the most depth would be at cornerback. There are a lot of elite cornerback prospects that are available. And when I mean elite, like not necessarily the Jalen Ramsey types, but I'm talking about high-end starters that would be starters for a long time, like working all the way down from Patrick Surtain to J.C. Horn to Caleb Farley. Those guys are solid. But then you have Greg Newsome. You have Asante Samuel Jr. I mean, so many guys, Elijah Molden, so many guys that I would say are plug-and-play standouts that you can just pluck them in day one minicamp. They can come in, jump in the lineup, and begin to make immediate contributions. The cornerback class is special.
How important is that number 23 overall pick for the Jets a little later in the first round, and that number 34 overall pick, which is early in the second round? How important are those picks following the number 2?
I mean, they're very important. Your teams are mostly comprised of first and second rounders in terms of your stars, your Pro Bowl players. If you go and look, most of the guys come from those landing spots or those launching points. And so if I'm thinking about the bottom of the first round, I want to make sure that I get a guy that's not only a high-end starter, but someone who has maybe Pro Bowl caliber potential. In the second round, it's the same thing. You're using the same model. The first 3 picks need to be starters, and they need to be impact players for the Jets right away. And so a lot of pressure is on Joe Douglas to make sure they get it right.
I have one more for you before I let you go, Bucky. You've obviously studied the draft very heavily. You're very much so in the mix. Are there any players that have caught your eye, maybe some players or stories that have flown under the radar with the draft coming up here soon?
Yeah, no, I think the interesting story would be, particularly if you're a Jets fan, I would keep an eye on Travis Etienne from Clemson. I just look at his game, and I think his game is a perfect fit for how this new offense will look. You talk about this system, which is one that is a outside zone system that has been very, very successful going all the way back to Mike Shanahan and company. Man, if you can have an opportunity to get a guy like Travis Etienne to put him in an offense that is perfectly suited for his skill set, you could see fireworks.
Bucky, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Bucky Brooks is an NFL Network analyst and a host of the Move the Sticks podcast alongside Daniel Jeremiah. And you can follow him on Twitter at Bucky Brooks. EA, back to you.
The Joe Douglas draft era kicked off last April with the 11th overall selection in the 2020 draft. Douglas grabbed not only the best player on the board, but also the biggest player in the 2020 class. Louisville tackle Mekhi Becton, listed at 6'7", 364 pounds, made 33 starts in 3 seasons with the Cardinals, with the final 21 starts coming at left tackle. Assistant GM Rex Hogan said Becton moved people like furniture. We saw a lot of furniture moving from the big, powerful man his rookie campaign. Fortifying the offensive line will continue to be a priority for Douglas. And here is Brian Baldinger with a look at some of the top offensive line interior prospects.
My top 3 guards and centers in this draft starts with the left guard here of USC, Ali Vera Tucker, number 75. Played left tackle this year, but in 2019 in the Holiday Bowl, he tore up Iowa right here. And you can see this his ability to fit and finish. Let him feel his punch. And in pass protection, he's solid. Going to keep the front of that pocket clean and strong. Here he is against the Irish. Now, right there, lock out, and then, just for fun, give him a little shove at the end. Let him know that you're there. Ali Vera Tucker, number 1 interior offensive lineman. But my favorite lineman in this whole draft is the center for Alabama right here this year, Landon Dickerson. He's played center and guard, but he is the closest thing to Quentin Nelson that we've seen. Just giving people shove back and forth. He can play center or guard. He's played them both. All right, now he's had knee injuries. That's the issue. But watch what he does against Auburn here. Now, he's free to help. Here comes a little twist stunt. Bam. That's what he does to twist stunts. Be careful, because that's what he's going to do to you. Very powerful. And then he's going to let you feel his punch too. Nasty, filthy, sets the tone up front for your offensive line. And then finally at Ohio State, the right guard, Wyatt Davis. All right, redshirt junior. All right, now watch him right here against Clemson. All right, lock out. Give Justin Fields all kinds of time to throw the bomb down the field. But what I like about Wyatt Davis, the fact that he's 6'3", 320 pounds, got a wide base, runs well, he's very athletic. He can get to that second level. Now watch it on this touchdown run. Give the nose guard a punch, and then come up to the linebacker and seal him. And Teague ran right behind him. Those 3 are my top 3 interior offensive linemen in this draft. Vera Tucker, Dickerson, and Davis. Go get one of them. They're going to help you right away.
Hey Jets fans, Dunkin' delivers from more locations than ever, which makes it easier to get your faves fast with coffee, donuts, sandwiches, and more brought right to your door. Order now through Grubhub, Uber Eats, or DoorDash. Price and participation may vary. Exclusions apply. Let Dunkin' run to you. Speaking of running, let's hurry up and get to Olivia for an update on the mock draft front.
Thanks, EA. Over the past couple of weeks, we've been presenting you, Jets Nation, some of the top mock drafts from around the league and breaking down what these potential picks might mean for the green and white. Before we get started, though, let's bring back in Anthony Becht and Eric Coleman, who are going to be bringing us some analysis on these mock drafts. Fellas, let's dive right into our first mock draft. This one comes from ESPN's Mel Kiper Jr. And as we've been seeing as of late, a trend, we've got quarterback Zach Wilson coming in at number 2. But the pick I want to focus on, Ethan, is this at number 23, cornerback Greg Newsome II. What do you like about Newsome?
Well, first off, this makes a lot of sense from a position standpoint because the only cornerback that Joe Douglas has signed in free agency is Justin Hardy. And there is a lot to like about Greg Newsome. At his pro day, he ran a 4.38 40-yard dash. He's got good height and weight, 6'1", 192 pounds. He only allowed a total of 10 completions in 2020. He led the FBS in passer rating against at 15.77. So one of the biggest questions then is, how does he fit what the Jets want to run on defense? And for that, I defer to Eric Coleman because he knows a little more about football than I do. So Eric Coleman, how do you think Greg Newsome fits in to what the Jets want to run on defense? And what do you think about him as a prospect?
I love Greg Newsome as a prospect. He's big, he has long arms, he has excellent feet. You know, when you look at these cornerbacks, everyone looks at the 40 time. How about you watch some tape, check out his footwork. He does a great job in press coverage. He's big, he's physical, but he's also well-versed in cover 3 and cover 4. Played a lot of zone coverage at Northwestern, so I think he'll fit in well with his defense. He has a great nose for the ball, attacks the ball well when it's in the air. So he's a guy who's going to get those tip balls. He's going to force turnovers. He's going to help turn around your defense. I think Greg Newsome, obviously a smart guy coming out of Northwestern, has a nose for the football and would be a great addition to the Jets secondary.
Greg Newsome, we haven't seen that one in any of the mock drafts, so that's an interesting pick there. And as you guys could see, we had Travis Etienne coming in at that number 34 overall pick on that mock draft. But I'd like to jump to the second mock draft that we have, and this one comes from CBS Sports' Chris Trapasso. And like we said, pick number 2, quarterback Zach Wilson, seems to be trending here on a lot of mock drafts, so we're not going to review that one. But EA, I would like to notice pick number 23 overall, offensive lineman Tevin Jenkins. Why do you think Tevin Jenkins would make a good fit in the green and white?
Well, Liv, first off, Jenkins, if you take a look at his headshot, he looks like a scholar with his glasses on. But make no mistake about it, he's gonna take your lunch money and you're not gonna feel good about it. This kid is nasty. He played right tackle at Oklahoma State, worked on the left side throughout the offseason. He's 6'6", but some scouts, some pundits have talked about his length. He's not the longest guy, even though he is 6'6", but he's nasty. He's a physical dude who's gonna get after you in the run game. I'm wondering actually if Jenkins ultimately would play on the interior at the guard position, but make no mistake about it, he's going early in this draft.
And we're going to remain on this mock draft here for a second. Anthony Beck's going to bring you back in on this one. Pick number 34 overall, running back Najee Harris. Now what's interesting, a couple of mock drafts already, we've seen running backs at that number 34 overall pick. We mentioned Travis Etienne earlier. What do you think is the biggest difference in these two running backs? Who do you like more for the green and white?
Yeah, you know, I love both of these guys, but they are significantly different players. When you look at Etienne, he's a home run hitter. This guy can score anywhere, anytime, any place on the football field. He's the best pass catching running back in the draft as well, and he is a glider when he runs. From a running back's perspective and similarities, think about Chris Johnson from Tennessee Titans many years ago. That's the kind of playmaker he can be. On the flip side, Najee Harris, you know, he's a very astute player, number one, very smart, but he's just a guy that from play one to the last play of the game, you wouldn't know the difference in his work ethic and his speed and his burst. He's going to give you 4 quarters of full play. The one thing though about Harris is if you're going to pick him, he needs to be your guy because he wants to rock. He wants to be in the game. He's a 3-down kind of back. He's not going to make a lot of people miss with his explosiveness. Look, they both have advantages. I would say this. I like the workhorse guys. I like the guys that can go in there and just play. And I love the fact that from first quarter to the fourth quarter, you're getting the same player. I'd give that the edge to Harris here, but both of these players are extremely qualified to be at that pick for the Jets.
Great analysis there, AB. And as the draft quickly approaches, we'll see if the Jets take a running back there with that second-round pick. Now let's jump to our final mock draft of this week, and this one comes from CBS Sports' Ryan Wilson. Now, Ethan, we got a couple of different picks I'd like for you to talk about. What stands out to you about this specific mock draft?
Well, let's work in reverse here. Let's hit the trifecta. Javonte Williams, another running back at 34, a little bit of a different flavor than both Travis Etienne and Najee Harris. Javonte Williams is a brute. 5'9", 212 pounds. He led the country in both broken tackles and first down carries this past season. He averaged 6.3 yards a pop over his 3-year career with the North Carolina Tar Heels. But let's stay in the ACC. Pick number 23 was Gregory Rousseau, who a lot of NFL draft analysts think is the biggest boom or bust draft prospect in the class. In 2019, he was one of 2 players with at least 15 sacks. The other one was Chase Young, the number 2 overall pick from last season, but Rousseau opts out of 2020. He medical redshirt in 2018. He transitions from wide receiver to defensive line in 2017 as a high school senior. So he's new-ish to the position, but he's got that raw trait that I think a lot of NFL draft scouts like. He's 6'6", 265 pounds, and in this mock draft in particular, EA and Anthony and Eric Coleman talked about this. Coming to this situation, if you're Gregory Rousseau, where you have Carl Lawson, you have Quinnen Williams, Sheldon Rankins, Vinny Curry, the list goes on and on. Maybe that's the best situation or one of the better situations for Gregory Rousseau where you don't necessarily need to start immediately from day one.
As we get closer to the NFL draft, some of these picks will start to unfold before our eyes. But until then, don't miss out on your opportunity to win $100,000, Jets fans. That's right, participate in the Jets Schedule Challenge presented by JetBlue and predict the exact order of all 17 games, including the bye week. Visit JetsScheduleChallenge.com for a chance to win and the official rules. EA, back to you.
Thanks, Liv. Speaking of the Jets Schedule Challenge, Tom Brady and the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers will visit MetLife Stadium in 2021. The Buccaneers are the only team the Jets have never lost to at home. I'm wondering if the league might go primetime with that matchup. Our Jets Draft Countdown series, delivered by Duncan, will conclude next Wednesday. All of our previous 3 episodes are available on our digital platforms. We'll pull out all the stops next week to get you ready for what could end up being one of the most significant draft weekends in Jets history. Until next time, so long.